In the profound depths of Buddhist philosophy, the idea of reincarnation is not just a mystical belief, it's a roadmap to spiritual evolution. According to ancient Buddhist teachings, every soul is reborn countless times, evolving through each life based on its karma, intentions, and awareness. But what happens when a soul has nearly completed its journey? What if you are in your last human life cycle, just steps away from nirvana, the ultimate freedom from suffering, rebirth, and illusion? While most people are unaware of the deeper stages of their soul's evolution, there are certain unmistakable signs that indicate a person is nearing the end of their karmic loop. These signs are not grand miracles or dramatic events, but subtle spiritual shifts, quiet awakenings that reveal a soul no longer tethered by worldly attachments, ego, or desire. In this video, we will explore 10 powerful signs rooted in Buddhist wisdom that suggest you are in your final reincarnation. If you recognize even a few of these signs within yourself, it may mean your soul is nearing enlightenment, and you are walking the sacred path of liberation. Let us begin this transformative journey with the first sign of a soul in its last life cycle. 1. Deep disinterest in materialism. One of the most powerful indicators that you are in your final life cycle is a natural and deep disinterest in materialism. While most people are consumed by the chase for wealth, possessions, fame, and status, a soul nearing the end of its karmic journey begins to feel a strong aversion to these pursuits. This is not a forced detachment. It happens effortlessly. You simply no longer find joy in what once excited the ego. You might notice that shopping, luxury, or external validation no longer excite you. In fact, you may feel drained or disconnected when you're around environments focused heavily on material gain. Instead of striving for more, you begin to crave simplicity, meaning, and inner peace. Your attention shifts from having to being. This is not laziness or apathy, it is spiritual maturity. In Buddhism, material attachment is seen as one of the great obstacles to enlightenment. The Buddha himself gave up a royal life of luxury because he realized that true freedom does not lie in possessions, but in liberation from craving. When your soul starts rejecting materialism on its own, it's a sign you've already learned the karmic lessons related to greed, attachment, and desire. This shift also impacts your relationships. You might feel less impressed by people who show off wealth or beauty, and more drawn to those who are authentic, humble, and spiritually aware. In conversations, you might prefer discussing life's mysteries, healing, or truth over gossip and superficial talk. You begin to sense that nothing outside of you can complete you, and that true contentment is found in self-awareness, compassion, and presence. It's not that you hate money, you just no longer see it as the source of your happiness or identity, and this subtle inner transformation marks a significant step toward liberation. If this resonates with you, keep watching, because the signs are just getting deeper. 2. A strong pull toward solitude. As a soul nears its final incarnation, one of the most profound shifts that occurs is a growing longing for solitude. This is not just the desire to be alone for a few hours. It is a deep, soul-level craving for silence, space, and inner stillness. People who are in their last life cycle often feel most alive when they are alone. Not because they dislike others, but because they have begun to realize the richness of the inner world. You may notice yourself feeling drained after social gatherings, even if the people around you are kind. Small talk becomes intolerable. Noise feels like an invasion. Crowds overwhelm you. Your soul is no longer stimulated by external noise. Instead, it finds nourishment in reflection, meditation, journaling, or simply sitting in nature and listening to the wind. According to Buddhist teachings, silence is not empty. It is full of answers. The more evolved a soul becomes, the more it seeks silence, because only in silence can one observe the true nature of reality without the filters of society, ego, and distraction. This love for solitude is also tied to the breakdown of the ego. Earlier in the karmic journey, we seek validation, attention, and relationships to define who we are. But when the soul is approaching its final return, it begins to understand that nothing outside of itself can reflect its true identity. Only in solitude can the illusions fall away, and the truth begin to emerge. You may find yourself spending more time in nature, feeling an inexplicable bond with trees, rivers, or animals. You might crave hours without talking, disconnected from phones, conversations, or even social media. Some people begin to pull away from lifelong friendships or family dynamics, not out of anger, but out of a need to protect their peace. This pull towards solitude is not loneliness, it's alignment. And it's one of the clearest signs that your soul is completing its journey through samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. 3. Intense emotional sensitivity. Another powerful and unmistakable sign that you may be in your final reincarnation is intense emotional sensitivity, not as a weakness, but as a sacred sensitivity to the pain, energy, and experiences of others. In your past lives, you may have needed to develop strength, assertiveness, or detachment. But in this final cycle, your soul begins to awaken to the deep interconnectedness of all beings, and with that awakening comes a profound emotional resonance. You might find yourself crying more easily, not just over your own challenges, but over the suffering of others, even strangers. Movies, music, or news stories that involve pain, injustice, or beauty can stir something deep inside you. This is not simply empathy. It is a soul-level awareness that the line between self and other is dissolving. In Buddhist philosophy, this kind of emotional sensitivity is tied to the development of karuna, or compassion. As the ego weakens and spiritual insight deepens, your heart becomes more open. You no longer see people as separate individuals acting out of malice or ignorance. You begin to see them as souls in pain, stuck in the same illusion you fought to awaken from. This realization can feel overwhelming, even exhausting at times, especially in chaotic environments. This deep sensitivity may also extend to energy. You might feel uncomfortable in places with negative vibrations, hospitals, violent neighborhoods, toxic workplaces, or around people who carry heavy emotional baggage. You pick up on micro-expressions, unspoken feelings, and subtle energetic shifts. Crowds and loud environments may overstimulate you, and you may find yourself needing to retreat just to recover from the energetic overload. Some in their final life cycle are labeled empaths or highly sensitive, but this goes beyond psychological definitions. This is spiritual attunement. Your soul is absorbing karmic imprints from others not to suffer, but to purify, to serve, and to evolve. With this sensitivity also comes the urge to help. You might be drawn to healing professions, acts of service, or random kindness. The pain of others is no longer their problem. It becomes a call from the universe to love more deeply, and you feel that call in your bones. 4. Unshakable inner peace during chaos. One of the most telling signs that you are in your last life cycle is the emergence of a deep, unshakable sense of inner peace, even when everything around you is falling apart. This peace is not dependent on circumstances. It is not the result of success, a perfect relationship, or financial comfort. It is a state of being that arises from within and remains untouched by external events. Most people panic when life doesn't go their way. They become anxious during uncertainty or angry when others betray them. But if your soul is nearing liberation, you may begin to notice that you are no longer easily shaken. You respond instead of react. You feel disappointment or sadness without becoming consumed by it. You might still feel pain, but you do not suffer the way you used to. Why? Because you understand the impermanence of all things. This is a core Buddhist teaching. Everything arises and everything falls. When this truth becomes more than just intellectual, when it becomes experiential, you develop a kind of spiritual immunity to chaos. You stop resisting life's changes. You stop attaching your identity to outcomes. You understand that pain is a teacher, not a punishment. In your final life cycle, peace becomes your natural state. You walk into storms with calm eyes. You hold space for pain without collapsing. You begin to see the world as a dream, sometimes beautiful, sometimes terrifying, but always fleeting. And because you've likely experienced countless lifetimes of drama, karma, and trauma, Your soul is simply tired of being disturbed. It yearns only for truth, awareness, and stillness. This doesn't mean you are emotionless. On the contrary, you feel everything, but you're not enslaved by those feelings. You understand the deeper mechanics of life. Attachment causes suffering. Presence ends it. Others may come to you for advice without knowing why. They feel your calm energy like a balm to their storm. Your presence alone begins to heal others, not because you try, but because you are at peace, and peace is contagious. If you've noticed this tranquility in yourself, even during painful life chapters, it's more than maturity. It may be the soul's final awakening. 5. A feeling of being different or misunderstood. Have you always felt like you do not quite belong? Like you are observing the world rather than being a part of it? This deep inner sense of being different is one of the most emotionally powerful signs that your soul is nearing its final incarnation. People in their last life cycle often feel like outsiders, even from a very young age. While others chase trends, drama, and material gain, you might have found yourself wondering, what's the point of all this? You may feel disconnected from societal norms, uninterested in superficial goals, and confused by the destructive patterns so many seem to accept as normal. This feeling of being different is not a flaw. It is your soul's wisdom revealing itself. In Buddhism, as the soul evolves, it begins to detach from the illusion known as Maya, the veil of illusion that keeps people trapped in materialism, ego, and suffering. Those who are awakening from this illusion often experience alienation, not because they are broken, but because they are waking up in a world still asleep. Others might misunderstand you. They may call you too sensitive, too serious, too quiet, or even too intense. They do not see the depth behind your eyes or the timeless weight your soul carries. You might try to fit in, but find that doing so leaves you feeling hollow. Instead of forcing yourself to be accepted, you slowly begin to embrace your uniqueness and walk your own path, even if it is lonely at times. You also might not resonate with your birth family or cultural background. While you may still love them, it often feels like your soul has outgrown many of the beliefs and patterns they live by. You might seek truth elsewhere, in books, philosophy, meditation, nature, or solitude. This sign is often painful, because the desire to belong is human. But your soul isn't here to conform, it's here to transcend. And that means walking a path very few understand. Over time, this loneliness turns into spiritual sovereignty. You stop needing approval. You stop shrinking to fit into boxes. You recognize your uniqueness as a spiritual gift, a sign that you are moving beyond the cycle of karma and entering the final stages of awakening. If you feel like an old soul, wise beyond your years, and slightly disconnected from the modern world, you are not lost. You are evolving. 6. A natural detachment from the ego. In the final stages of the soul's reincarnation journey, there begins a powerful and often irreversible shift. The ego starts to dissolve. Unlike earlier lifetimes, where the ego dominated your decisions, your image, and your sense of worth, in your last life cycle, you begin to see the ego for what it truly is, an illusion. You stop needing to prove yourself. Titles, appearance, competition, and validation start to feel unnecessary. It is not that you no longer care about doing well in life, but you realize that your value is not tied to how others see you. This natural detachment from ego is one of the most advanced signs of spiritual evolution. Buddhism teaches that the ego is the root of suffering. It constantly needs to be fed through attention, control, comparison, and attachment. But a soul that is nearing enlightenment starts seeing through these traps. You may notice that compliments no longer inflate your pride, and criticism no longer wounds you deeply. Why? Because your identity no longer rests in the external world. It resides in awareness itself. You may still feel anger or jealousy occasionally, but it passes like a breeze. You no longer identify with those emotions. They are passing clouds in the sky of your consciousness. You stop defending your image, and instead you embrace humility. You start to listen more and speak less. You feel no urge to be better than anyone, and instead feel drawn to understand and support others without any personal agenda. This detachment from ego also transforms the way you handle failure or rejection. Rather than seeing them as personal attacks, you understand them as opportunities for growth, or even karmic lessons. Your reactions become quieter, more mindful. You are no longer reactive. You are reflective. This calmness is not learned from a book. It is earned through countless lifetimes of navigating the highs and lows of ego-based living. In your final life cycle, authenticity replaces performance. You stop trying to impress, persuade, or dominate. You become gentle. You smile more. You forgive faster. And the irony is, this quiet power, free from ego, becomes magnetic to others. If you feel yourself no longer caring who gets credit, who wins the argument, or who looks better, you may be standing at the edge of liberation, where the self becomes no self, and freedom begins. 7. A deep sense of purpose, without needing to know why. Another profound sign that your soul is nearing its final reincarnation is the presence of a deep inner purpose, even if you cannot logically explain it. This purpose does not come from ambition or societal expectations. It comes from within, like a soft, unwavering pull, guiding your every step. You may not know where it leads, but you trust it completely. You might feel like you are here for something important, not in the traditional sense of becoming famous or wealthy, but in the spiritual sense of contributing to healing, awakening, or transformation. Even if your life seems quiet or ordinary from the outside, inside, you feel as if your very presence matters. You begin to sense that every action, word, and intention carries a ripple effect, and that living with kindness, honesty, and awareness is a mission all its own. In Buddhism, this intuitive drive is connected to Dharma, your soul's true path. Unlike karma, which binds, Dharma liberates. When you begin aligning with your Dharma, your choices stop being about what is expected of you and start being about what feels right on a soul level. You may suddenly feel drawn to certain places, people, or practices without a logical reason. You might take detours in life that others do not understand, but you know they are meaningful, even sacred. This inner compass is incredibly strong during your final life. You may no longer feel desperate for clarity or long-term plans. You simply trust that your path is unfolding as it should. Even during confusing or painful times, a quiet voice within tells you to keep going, and you do, because you are no longer operating on fear, but on faith in the unseen. You begin to care less about success and more about impact. Whether you're speaking with a stranger, raising a child, planting a garden, or meditating in silence, you feel as though you are contributing to something far bigger than yourself. You may feel like a vessel being moved by divine intelligence, and you surrender to that flow, not needing to control it anymore. People in their final life cycles often express this through service, whether teaching, healing, creating, or simply radiating calm and presence. Your purpose becomes less about doing and more about being true, being present, being love. If you've ever felt that quiet but powerful pull to live meaningfully without needing to explain why, your soul may be nearing its final destination. 8. Heightened intuition and inner knowing. A clear and compelling sign that you are in your last life cycle is the rise of heightened intuition and inner knowing. This is not just occasional gut feelings or lucky hunches. It's a consistent, deep trust in your own inner guidance, often defying logical reasoning or societal norms. In many previous lives, you might have relied heavily on external validation, expert opinions, or social rules to navigate the world. But as your soul nears enlightenment, there is a powerful shift. You begin to recognize that the most reliable guidance comes from within. This inner knowing often manifests as sudden clarity about decisions, people, or situations. You may have moments where you just know something before it happens, or understand the true nature of a problem without needing much explanation. This is your higher self communicating through intuition, a connection to the deeper wisdom accumulated through countless lifetimes. Buddhist teachings emphasize the importance of mindfulness and insight, vipassana, to develop this intuitive awareness. In your final life cycle, this practice becomes almost effortless because the distractions of ego and desire have less hold on your consciousness. You become more attuned to subtle signs, synchronicities, and the whispers of your soul. Heightened intuition can also bring warnings, nudges, or moments of deep peace that guide your path. You might find yourself avoiding toxic people or situations simply because your inner compass steers you away. Conversely, you may feel drawn towards certain experiences or people without a clear explanation. Trusting this pull leads to growth or healing. This increased sensitivity to the unseen can sometimes be confusing or even frightening, especially if you are not used to trusting it. But it is a sacred gift. It shows that your soul is waking up to the universal intelligence that underlies all existence. If you find that your intuition rarely leads you astray, and that your inner voice is louder and clearer than ever, it may be a sign that your soul is preparing to transcend the cycle of rebirth. 9. A growing compassion for all life. A defining hallmark of being in your last life cycle is the blossoming of boundless compassion, not only for loved ones, but for every living being on earth. This compassion is not selective or conditional. It flows naturally and deeply from your heart. As you evolve spiritually, you start to recognize that all beings, humans, animals, plants, are interconnected parts of the same universal existence. The Buddha taught that compassion, karuna, and loving-kindness, metta, are the highest virtues, and souls nearing enlightenment embody these qualities effortlessly. You may find yourself feeling an overwhelming desire to help others, not because of obligation, but because of genuine love. You become more patient with human flaws, more tolerant of mistakes, and more willing to forgive. This compassion extends even to those who have hurt you or others, because you see their pain and ignorance as part of the human condition. This shift can transform your daily life. Small acts of kindness, such as helping a stranger or caring for animals, bring deep fulfillment. You may also become involved in causes that promote peace, justice, or environmental protection. But even if your life remains quiet, your heart holds a sacred tenderness for all life. Such expansive compassion is a clear sign your soul is nearing the end of samsara, the endless cycle of suffering and rebirth. You are preparing to transcend selfish desires and become one with universal love and truth. If you notice your heart opening wider each day, and your urge to care deeply for all beings growing stronger, you are walking the final, most beautiful path toward awakening. 10. A sense of readiness to let go. The final sign that you are in your last life cycle is a profound sense of readiness to let go, not just of possessions or relationships, but of life itself. This readiness does not come from despair or hopelessness. Instead, it flows from a deep understanding that life is a temporary journey, and that the soul's ultimate goal is liberation from the cycle of birth and death. You may notice a fading fear of death, and even a peaceful curiosity about what comes after. The unknown no longer terrifies you because you trust the process of existence. You might find yourself thinking less about what if, and more about what is. The attachment to your physical body, identity, and past experiences begins to dissolve. Buddhism teaches that the greatest liberation is to be free from attachment, not only to things, but to self. When your soul is nearing enlightenment, you embrace this teaching fully. You begin to understand that clinging to life, fears, regrets, or desires only prolongs suffering. Instead, you cultivate acceptance, surrender, and faith. This sign can manifest in subtle ways: a calm acceptance of your health changes, a gentle farewell to old grudges, or an ease in discussing death openly without fear. You may feel a strong urge to put your affairs in order, not out of anxiety, but out of clarity and peace. This readiness is not about giving up. It is about transcending. It is the soul's way of saying, I am done with this cycle. I am ready to move on. It is the last step before crossing the threshold into nirvana, freedom from suffering, rebirth, and illusion. If this resonates deeply with you, it means your soul is on the verge of completing its long spiritual journey, and a new, eternal chapter awaits. Recognizing these 10 profound signs within yourself is a powerful step toward understanding your spiritual journey through the lens of Buddhist wisdom. To be in your last life cycle means your soul has traversed countless lifetimes, overcoming karma, ego, and illusion. It means you are approaching the final liberation, nirvana, where suffering ends and eternal peace begins. These signs, from a deep disinterest in materialism to a readiness to let go of life itself, are not random occurrences. They are the soul's way of signaling that it has learned its lessons and is preparing to transcend the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. The more you embrace these signs, the more you align with your true nature, pure awareness, compassion, and boundless love. Your final life is a sacred opportunity. It invites you to cultivate peace, deepen compassion, and awaken fully to the present moment. This journey may be challenging, but it is also the most beautiful, as it leads to freedom from all suffering. If you recognize these signs in your own life, honor them. Listen to your soul's wisdom. Walk gently but confidently toward your awakening. The path is unfolding, and your final liberation is within reach.